Mornings in Seattle have their own scent, the aroma of coffee blending with the cold mist, weaving through narrow streets, waking up even those who have grown used to rushing through life. In the middle of a city crowded with glass towers and the constant hurry of people going to work, there's a quiet little corner, a coffee called Slow Morning. The name sounds like a whisper in a world that's always in a hurry, an invitation to slow down, take a deep breath, and live fully in a single peaceful moment. In that place, time seems to move slower, and the warm, slightly bitter aroma of coffee becomes its own language spoken only by those who are learning how to begin again. The coffee is owned by Lucas, a man in his mid-30s who once worked as a software engineer at a major tech company. He quit his job 2 years ago after one sleepless night, staring at lines of code flashing like the heartbeat of a machine. That night, he realized he'd been living like a robot, working 14 hours a day, trapped in the same loop exhaustion. Coffee, deadlines, and more exhaustion. One morning, he looked into the mirror and didn't recognize the face staring back. No sadness, no joy, just emptiness. And that's when he decided to stop. Lucas rented an old abandoned shop, repainted the walls, and taught himself how to make coffee. On his first day, he served only 6 cups, 2 spilled, 3 were too bitter, and 1 was sent back because it was cold. That night, he sat alone in the quiet coffee. The yellow light fell across a table still wet with spilled coffee, and he thought, maybe I failed again. But then he remembered something an old friend, a track runner, once told him. Every day, I just try to run 1% faster than yesterday. Just 1%. It sounds small, but 1% every day, after a year, makes you 37 times better. That thought dropped into his heart like a single drip of espresso. The next morning, Lucas didn't try to make the perfect cappuccino. He just tried to make it 1% better than the day before. The milk foam a little smoother, the aroma a little stronger, his smile a little more genuine. Just 1%. Nothing more. 3 weeks later, a few regulars began showing up. A middle-aged man who read every morning, a young student who worked on her projects by the window. They said his coffee was still a bit bitter, but honest. Maybe that's why they kept coming back, not just for the coffee, but for the patience that lived inside every cup. Lucas began writing down every detail, the amount of coffee grounds, the water temperature, the brewing time. Each day, he adjusted things just 1%. After 30 days, he made his first espresso that made him truly smile. After 90 days, his regulars doubled. After 1 year, Slow Morning became a favorite spot for office workers across South Lake Union. One day, a journalist asked him, "What's the secret behind your success? How did a software engineer become such a respected barista?" Lucas smiled, looking down at the demon cup in his hands. There's no secret. Just 1% a day, 1% in skill, 1% in attitude, and 1% in believing that I can always be a little better than yesterday. Then he shared a story few people knew. In his first year, he still lived in a tiny apartment upstairs. There was no sign outside, no ads, no marketing. He focused only on the small things, wiping the tables a little cleaner, sharpening the knives a little better, choosing fresher beans each morning, tiny things no one else noticed. But Lucas knew those were the invisible percentages, quietly adding up. And over time, it wasn't just the coffee that changed. He did, too. Back then, he needed caffeine to stay awake. Now, just the smell of coffee made him feel alive. Before, he chased pressure to be faster, smarter, more successful. Now, he chased only the joy of patience. One winter morning, the young student from years ago came back, now a designer. She smiled and said, "You know, Lucas, you taught me something important. Change doesn't come from big leaps. It comes from being patient enough to add just 1% every day." Her words left Lucas silent for a long moment. He thought about the man he used to be 2 years ago, the one who believed that one big leap could change his entire life. But life, he realized, isn't a single jump. It's a million small steps. And in each step, there's a humble, steady 1% quietly building strength, one day at a time. Now, whenever someone asks him how to start over, Lucas simply smiles and points to the small wooden sign hanging behind the counter. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be 1% better than yesterday. Customers read it and smile. But few know that this very sentence was what pulled him out of his darkest days. Every night, after closing the coffee, Lucas brews one last espresso just for himself. He turns off the lights, leaves a small lamp glowing behind the bar, and sits in silence. He listens to the steady drip of coffee falling into the cup, drop by drop, patient and rhythmic, just like time itself. He often thinks, maybe success is a lot like brewing coffee. It's not about speed. It's about consistency, stillness, and trust in every second of what you're doing. If you asked him about his 5-year plan, he would laugh and say he doesn't have one. He only has one goal: to be 1% better every day. Because he knows 1% may feel small today, but over 365 days, it's not just twice as good, it's 37 times better. And if you keep that 1% for 10 years, it doesn't just change your skills, it changes who you are, quietly, deeply, truly. Once, Lucas was invited to speak at a university. He ended his talk with a line that left the whole auditorium silent. Don't wait for everything to be perfect before you start. Because if you just get 1% better every day, in a year, you'll be ahead of 99% of people who are still waiting. He paused, looked at the quiet room, and smiled. So start today, not with a big plan, but with one small action, one deep breath, one cup of coffee poured with full attention. Outside the glass window, Seattle was still raining cold, gray, familiar. But inside slow morning, the air was warm and filled with the rich aroma of coffee, a reminder that even the smallest things, done with patience and love, can quietly transform an entire life. If this story made you stop and think, leave a like, share it, and subscribe, because who knows, maybe the 1 minute you spend today will be your first 1% toward the change you've been waiting for.